All right, let's start with the prayers. Until I reach enlightenment, I take refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By accumulating merit and wisdom through generosity and the other perfections, may I attain Buddhahood for the benefit of all sentient beings. Until I reach enlightenment, I take refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By accumulating merit and wisdom through generosity and the other perfections, may I attain Buddhahood for the benefit of all sentient beings. Until I reach enlightenment, I take refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By accumulating merit and wisdom through generosity and the other perfections, may I attain Buddhahood for the benefit of all sentient beings. May all sentient beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May all sentient beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May all sentient beings never be separated from the happiness that is free from suffering. May all sentient beings abide in equanimity, free from attachment and anger, that holds some close and others distant. I pay homage to the Sublime Mother of the victorious ones of the three times, the inexpressible, inconceivable, and indescribable perfection of wisdom, which is unborn, unceasing, and of the nature of space, and which is the object of realization of the self-knowing primordial wisdom. Okay, so we got to, I think it was page 83. There's also quite a bit of a discussion going on here in the discussion group, so I'll address that. Still, I want to address your question, Rika, and a few other things, a few other discussions. But let's first deal with the text. I've added now the name of the text available in English of Lama Tsongkhapa's commentary. It's called Ocean of Reasoning. Great commentary on Nagarjuna's Mula Madhyamika Karika. So I've added that on page 83, the footnote. I forgot to add the footnote. Now it's there. All right. So we talked about this important concept. Last time we started to speak about what is contaminated, uncontaminated, the meaning of contaminated according to Acharya Chandrakirti. Being that anything that is somehow affected by our root misconception as well as by the imprints, the subtle traces it leaves behind, it's called contaminated. So sentient beings are contaminated, minds are contaminated, our minds are contaminated, us as living beings. It sounds terrible, like, oh, we're so contaminated, we're so impure. But it's just a way of saying, well, I guess the word contaminated, I've given this example before, for instance, when you bake a cake and you've got the best ingredients, you've got, the best flour you can get, the organic milk or what have you, healthy eggs, and then there's one egg that's rotten. So it's a bit like that. We have everything, we have all these ingredients, we have this incredible mind, this body that can do so much. However, there's the rotten egg of our root misconception. So in that way, contaminated. And it influences just as that rotten egg affects the taste of these amazing ingredients of the cake. So likewise, it affects our experiences. It turns all our experiences into something extreme. The root misconception is extreme. It superimposes. It adds something to the way phenomena exist in actuality, and thereby leads to more exaggerations, extreme emotions. It's so interesting, like every extreme emotion, every afflicted emotion. So afflicted emotions are just extreme emotions. They're not in accordance with reality. But they also have an ordinary counterpart, if you want. For instance, attachment is just feeling close to other sentient beings. Feeling close to others. Attachment is, can't be without that person, can't be happy without that person. While a normal, if you like, or a realistic kind of emotion would be feeling close to others, wanting to be with them, feeling of affection. Then with anger or resentment, I mean, we don't have to approve of everything other people do. Recognizing a negative action as a negative action and possibly stop the person from harming themselves and others. But our response is an extreme response. In the case of, for instance, recognizing the negative actions of a person, we focus on the negative action and less on the person. We're not getting upset about this person being this, that, and the other. But with anger, we ignore the action, but it becomes the person who's our main focus. So in that way, we experience something that is also extreme as a result of our afflictions. Well, first of all, it gives rise to extreme actions that are not in accordance with reality. And then we experience something that is not natural to our mind, in that we don't want to experience it. That it's not natural in the sense that it's not in the nature of our mind. I mean, it's like our mind doesn't want to experience it. As simple as that. So we should be, the natural state of our mind would be peaceful and satisfied. Right? So the natural taste of this particular cake without the rotten egg would be whatever it is, right? Delicious, sweet, fruity, what have you. So similarly here, because of that misconception, it distorts everything. It turns everything into, well, all our minds into extreme minds, most of our minds into extreme minds. Most of our minds, well, yeah, our mental consciousnesses, and gives rise to an extreme experience which is unpleasant. Yeah. And the Buddha only taught this because we don't like the unpleasant experience. Again, I said that many times. If the unpleasant experience, we would like it, would really enjoy it, the Buddha would have taught us differently. He would have said, be a little bit more selfish if you can. You want more of that pleasant suffering? Well, just be a little bit more resentful, more hateful. Now, these states in and of themselves, they're neither positive or negative. It's in relation to what they give rise to and in relation to what we prefer that we call them negative. It's just a simple result of many different causes, and if we don't like the result, well, we should get rid of the cause. It's as simple as that. I mean, simply said, but of course difficult to do. So contaminated, therefore, it's that root misconception. It comes down to that. That's what contaminates us temporarily. Okay, but not just our mind, ourselves. Ourselves, we're contaminated. You can say we're contaminated because we have these different minds, ignorance and so forth. Our minds, unless we realize emptiness directly, they're likewise contaminated. Okay, and even the environment, even our environment, the world we live in, is contaminated. But of course, that takes us to saying, well, as we discussed last time towards the end, well, what about a Buddha coming here? Is that contaminated for a Buddha? And it's not. Which takes us to this fundamental view that actually my reality is the reality my mind experiences. So my world is the world I experience. The world I live in is the world I experience, which is not the same world that you experience. So when I say the world I live in, is that subjectively experienced world. And of course, you all have your own subjectively existent world. So the Buddha has his or her own subjectively existent world, and therefore, being uncontaminated, the mind being uncontaminated, the experience is pure and blissful. That's really difficult, that idea, isn't it? It's logical. How could it be? You know, what external world would there be? What objective external world would there be? But then we would have to say it's not contaminated. It's got not, I mean, we are, but not the world we live in. But then again, it couldn't be, the world we live in couldn't be the result of our karmic actions in the past. It couldn't be. How could it be? Because everything we experience, if I perceive it in a pleasant, I mean, karma basically means it's a law of cause and effect. There is a general law of cause and effect. And part of that general law of cause and effect is the law of karma. It's just one aspect, one instance, if you like, one example of the law of cause and effect. The law of cause and effect is much vaster than the law of karma. It includes a seed giving rise to a sprout. It includes, you know, this environment, even though it doesn't exist subjectively, but nonetheless it exists. So the happening within this world we live. But the law of cause and effect refers to our actions, our volitional actions, controlled by our mind, giving rise to experiences in the future. How do these experiences manifest? In what we perceive, for instance, in terms of the environment we're in. How could we live in an objective world and at the same time experience the result of our karma? Doesn't make sense. Everyone should experience the world the same way. If it was really out there, if pleasantness, okay, it's as simple as that actually, just talking about something being pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. If there were an objective reality, there would have to be an objective pleasantness. Therefore, if we saw, I don't know, something, a tree or whatever, we would all have the same experience of it being pleasant. But that's not what happens. You can have the same experience, one thinks it's blissful, the next person thinks it's horror. Try to think what that could be. Maybe a movie. We definitely all disagree on what is a good movie. So some would think, whoa, so much killing and slashing going on, or so much romance going on, or so much detective work going on, depending on your preference. And for another person, it would be terribly boring. So that explains, if there's no objective, pleasant, unpleasant, and so forth, there cannot be anything else that exists objectively. Where do you draw the line? Beauty is subjective. Pleasant is subjective, but a tree is not. And first of all, does every living being perceive a tree? I mean, I'm not just talking about animals and humans. And anyway, animals, what do they? I mean, a dog may perceive a toilet. I mean, like something they pee, it's like that tree that they always pee on. So, yeah, anyway. All right. And then taking it further, for a preta being, this could be a desert. We already spoke about that liquid, like liquid, we have a bowl of liquid, and humans see it as water, and preta beings as pus and blood. But that's just one example. Maybe where we see like a beautiful lake, they see a desert. I mean, it's their sense consciousnesses, their sense faculties that are different from ours. And I mean, our sense faculties, this is where modern science is just so fascinating. The two really complement each other. So much we miss out on. So many sounds we can't hear. So many waves we can't perceive. So many colors we can't see. There's only a certain range of colors we can see. But we still say they're there. Before science established their existence, we thought they were just, if someone spoke about them, like, that's rubbish, it can't be there because we don't perceive it. There's so much we don't see. and so much we only see because we're humans. So what's really there? We can understand that intellectually, but it doesn't feel that way. That's our problem. It doesn't feel that way. It feels like there's this world out there, everyone sees it the same way, and yeah, well, it's our difficulty to really feel it, because if we do, we pay a lot more attention to our own mind, being the creator of this environment. We don't blame everyone who throws their garbage. Yeah, okay. Okay, so anyway, having said that about the external world, Lama Tsongkhapa says, so the impure world, its inhabitants and so on, that are tainted by the imprints of ignorance. The impure world refers to the environment perceived and inhabited by ordinary beings. It is considered contaminated because it has arisen under the power or influence of their root ignorance and its imprints, being the result of these causes. So each and every individual's root ignorance, imprints, and of course what they give rise to, the other afflictions. So saying it was caused, the environment I perceive was caused by my root ignorance does not exclude the other afflictions, of course. We're just pointing at the foundational, the fundamental cause. Okay. And then there is uncontaminated. By contrast, an uncontaminated phenomenon is entirely free from both, so this is on page 84. By contrast, an uncontaminated phenomenon is entirely free from both the ignorance that apprehends intrinsic existence and its imprints. Minds that are uncontaminated include the meditative equipoise directly realizing emptiness in the continuum of sentient beings. Okay, so once we're able to experience emptiness directly, well, we'd have an example of a mind that is uncontaminated. That would be an example of a mind that's uncontaminated. As well as the sense and mental consciousness of a Buddha. So a Buddha, of course, has no contaminated minds. Sentient being just means a living being who's not a Buddha, or a being who's not a Buddha. These minds, so the direct realization of emptiness in the continuum of a sentient being, as well as any mind of a Buddha, all the minds of a Buddha, perceive their objects exactly as they are, without mistaken appearance, and are therefore untouched by any obscuring influence. Likewise, the remaining aggregates and all other qualities of a Buddha are uncontaminated, and beings that are uncontaminated are the Buddhas themselves. So with regard to the parts of the Buddha, so the aggregates of a Buddha are uncontaminated, and beings, like a living being, a person who's uncontaminated, is a Buddha, him or herself. So we talk about basically three things: a living being, a being, contaminated or not. As sentient beings, we always have mistaken minds, we always have mistaken appearances, therefore you can say we are contaminated. Then what about a person in the meditative equipoise directly realizing emptiness? So their mind is uncontaminated. Are they themselves uncontaminated? No, because they still have the imprints in their continuum, or they haven't eliminated the imprints yet, right? So a person who's absorbed in the meditative equipoise, directly realizing emptiness. Like think, you yourself, at one point you realize emptiness directly. So you enter into that meditative equipoise. Do you still have any other mind left? I used to think for the longest time, yes. But actually in this text, in Lama Tsongkhapa's text, it says the sense consciousnesses are no longer active. So I used to think, and I'm pretty sure one of my teachers taught that, I don't know where it came from really, but that the sense consciousnesses turn into awarenesses to which the object appears, but is not ascertained. But based on Lama Tsongkhapa's explanation, there are no sense consciousnesses. When you're absorbed in the meditative equipoise, in that moment, they dissolve. Just like when we are asleep. Just at the time of deep sleep, or at the time of sleep in general, there are no sense consciousnesses. In the dream, you have a dream eye consciousness, but that's a mental consciousness which functions like an eye consciousness. It's actually a mental consciousness. So you're just dreaming that you see things, you dream that you hear things. Therefore, in a dream, you don't have the sense consciousnesses. When you faint, there are no sense consciousnesses. Only when we're awake, we have sense consciousnesses. Yes?
Would that be similar to the kind of consciousness we have in the bardo then?
Would that be similar to the consciousness we have in the pardo? No. In the pardo, you have a body. That is, you have a body when you sleep, but your sense faculties are not working. In the pardo, you have a body, the sense faculties of which are working. You have a subtle body. In the pardo, you see things, you hear things. You have a body that is like an energy, a body made of the subtle energy.
But when I'm in the meditative equipoise, I still have a body, no?
Yes, you do have a body.
So, isn't that then also the like subtle?
No, it's a coarse body. It's the same body you have right now.
No, but you just said our senses don't work in this state anymore.
Oh, you mean the mind? Does the mind become subtler? Do you mean the mind that meditates? Well, in the tantric system, yes. So I have to be a little bit careful because I mix sometimes tantra and sutra. We're strictly speaking talking about the sutric system here. And of course, we're not talking about the tantric meditations or methods and so forth. But every now and then it comes up as part of your questions, or I bring it up as part of my explanations. The subtle energy in the body, the subtle mind. So in the sutric system, actually, they don't talk about that. They don't talk about subtle energy. So therefore, here talking about being absorbed in the meditative equipoise, realizing emptiness. In the sutric system, they wouldn't call it a subtle mind. They would call it just an ordinary mind, a little subtler than the others, but they don't distinguish in the same way as in the tantric system, where when you're asleep, you have a slightly subtle mind, and at the time of death, you have a very, very subtle mind. So they don't use that distinction, but it would have to be subtler, definitely, and but it would not be like you're asleep. You'd be awake, but only your mental consciousness would be active. According to the tantric system, it would be a very subtle mind. In fact, the tantric system is the clear light mind that you utilize. So it's a very subtle mind. Yeah. Okay. But let's not get confused with the tantric and the sutric system. Yeah. I'm confusing you, so it's my fault. All right, so going back to, as a person, therefore, can a person be who's absorbed in the meditative equipoise directly realizing emptiness? No, because they still have the obstructions in their mental continuum. They haven't eliminated them yet. But this is a little bit difficult. I'm going to mention something which is a little bit difficult. Okay. You might as well get used to it now because it comes up later. Okay, so let's say you are on the path of seeing, which is you're only in the beginning of realizing emptiness directly. So on the path of seeing, you realize emptiness directly for the first time, and you are already eliminating certain obstructions, right? While you're in that meditative equipoise, you eliminate the coarsest types of obstructions. All right, that's easy to understand, or not that hard to understand. But you're not tackling all of them. While you're in that absorption, there are plenty left in your continuum. So it's okay, no problem. You can say that person is contaminated, because although their minds are totally pure, they still have the obscurations, the imprints, for instance. Okay. So that's all right. But then, just before you become a Buddha, the last time you enter into the direct perception of emptiness, before you become a Buddha, you never arise from that direct perception. Because as a Buddha, you're always in the direct perception of emptiness. You're at the same time able to be active, to interact with people. You can do everything that we can do and much more. At the same time, you're absorbed into emptiness. Very hard to imagine with our very limited mind, but yeah, so the texts are very clear on that. Okay, so that last moment, you're enter into the meditative equipoise, directly realizing emptiness. You're still a sentient being. You're still a sentient being. You're still not a Buddha. Okay, so what is the difference between you and a Buddha? Well, first of all, you can't see conventional truth when you're in that meditative equipoise. Important difference. But one difference is that when you're in that last moment of the meditative equipoise, you don't have any obstructions. You haven't eliminated them yet, but they're not in your continuum. Does that make sense? No, right? It's like, what? You're cleaning and the dirt is gone? It's a bit like that, right? You could ask that question. So while you're eliminating the subtlest obscurations, the last time as a sentient being, you're now eliminating the subtlest obscurations. But they're gone. So what are you eliminating? This is an assertion that is very important. That whenever you're eliminating, so what is the vacuum cleaner of your mind? Is the mind that realizes emptiness directly. I know it's ridiculous, but I love the vacuum cleaner. Because that's what it's like. Our mind kind of eliminates all these obscurations. It's like it's got the function of a vacuum cleaner. But the funny thing is that as it is active, that which is to be eliminated is already gone. There are two ways by which you can eliminate something. It's there while you eliminate it, or it's not there while you eliminate it, right? So whatever the different minds, of course, you have many different types of, and you'll find that out once we go through the text, that realize emptiness directly. So, I don't know, one day you realize emptiness directly for the first time. You eliminate something, but you have to rise from that absorption. And then you go into it again, and you come out again, and you go into it again, and come out of it again. So that process of alternating between direct perception, and then maybe there's some years, maybe some lifetimes you don't go back into it, depending on your ability. But the point is, you enter, you come out. And as you enter, usually you eliminate something from your mind for good, some obstruction. And every time you go into another absorption, you eliminate something subtler. Every time you subtler and subtler and subtler, your mind becomes stronger and stronger. It's kind of like you put up the power of your vacuum cleaner. Nowadays you have these kind of electrical, they're always electrical, but these you can kind of adjust the power, like more power, it can suck in stuff that it sits deeper in your carpet. You know, the superficial stuff, it gets right away, but the bits really deeper, they're deep in your carpet, they're difficult to, so you need it has to be stronger. So taking that as the example, or taking that as the analogy, the point is that every time you switch on the vacuum cleaner, it runs for some time and you get rid of something. And then what we learned during the study of Parchin, which precedes the study of Uma, so the study of the Perfection of Wisdom Sutras, the implicit meaning, which means we study all the different meditations and path and so forth before we study Uma. In there, that question is asked. If every time your vacuum cleaner, the mind, eliminates something, how does it eliminate it? Does it eliminate whatever it does eliminate, whatever obscuration it eliminates, by way of the obscuration being there while you're eliminating it, or not being there? And the answer is very clear, not being there. The moment it arises, the meditative equipoise arises, there's no obscuration. So like, what? That's where the vacuum cleaner analogy falls short, because that doesn't make sense. You switch it on and the dirt is gone. I mean, that would do for very, very quick cleaning. So that doesn't work. So that analogy doesn't work. But there's another analogy that is used. What is the other analogy that is used? Think house, thief. Remember? Like kicking out a thief. When the meditative equipoise is present, you're kicking out a thief. You're kicking out the obscurations. So it's like the moment it arises, you've kicked them out, but you haven't closed the door yet. You have to close the door to these obscurations, in order for these obscurations not to return. Which is why the vacuum cleaner analogy, like I said, falls short here in trying to understand how it works. What happens is your mind pushes out these, like the direct realization of emptiness, when it's able to eliminate certain obscurations. The moment it arises, it's like it's pushing them out. But it hasn't eliminated them yet. It hasn't eliminated them yet. It's just pushed them out. Now it needs to close the door. I mean, it has to be sure that they don't return. I mean, it's not like the mind is actively doing something, but doing something like, as in like really throwing something out and then closing a door. This is just the analogy. But the question that arises, therefore, if the person who enters into the meditative equipoise, let's say the first few seconds, if they arise from that, will the obstructions return? The answer would have to be yes. So you kick them out, but they would come back. Now, in the texts, there are two stages they describe. They talk about the uninterrupted path and the path of release. So one meditative session, realizing emptiness directly. One uninterruptedly gets rid of the afflictions, and then as part of that direct realization of emptiness, now called path of release, now you've kicked them out. The door is closed. The release has been attained. Here I'm translating directly from the Tibetan. So in other words, one is the direct antidote that's getting rid of the afflictions, and the other one is the one that got rid of them. It's all part of one meditative session. The realization of emptiness is all the same. So you could look at it this way, that your mind purifies your own mind. The mind purifies its own obscurations. It's now able to, because they all lie within the mind. These obscurations are basically, they're in the mind. So it gets rid of them and then remains absorbed in that direct realization while making sure they can't come back. Does that make sense? No, it doesn't really make sense. I mean, you have like, it's like, think of the meditative equipoise realizing emptiness as like this person kicking out a thief. So in the first part of their meditative equipoise realizing emptiness, they kick out the obscurations that they need to get rid of. And then the second part, they make sure they can't come back. And once that has happened, then they arise from that meditative equipoise, those bodhisattvas. Does that make sense? We'll learn more about this. But just to introduce you to this idea, because when you hear it now, it's new and it may sound weird, but when you hear it the second and third time, and it becomes pretty straightforward and easy. It's not that difficult. It's complicated now, but you get so used to it. Now, the question is, when you now, for the last time, enter the meditative equipoise, before you become a Buddha, in that moment, the obscurations are already gone. You kick them out already, but you haven't closed the door yet. The moment you close the door, you're a Buddha. So in that moment, when they're not there, because you've kicked them out, but you haven't closed the door yet, are you contaminated or not? Do you have any obscurations left? And the answer is no. But when I asked my teachers, they were undecided about that. I asked them about this, one of them at least, who's an amazing Geshe, someone I can totally trust. He's such an amazing, he's one of the Geshes down in South India. The best Geshes, they stay in the monastery. They don't let them go. They don't let them go to, teach somewhere in the world. Like, they need really good teachers down in the source. So he's from Drepung Loseling, and they would never let him go. He's a really important teacher down there. So I can trust him 100%. So I asked him, I said, okay, so talking about a contaminated versus an uncontaminated person. We know an uncontaminated person is the Buddha. Okay, Buddha is uncontaminated. But what about this person just before they become a Buddha? They enter the meditative equipoise as a sentient being, as a non-Buddha, for the last time. before they become a Buddha. So in that moment, already their obscurations are gone. So they must be uncontaminated. So he said he wasn't sure, but he thought it was better to say they're contaminated because they're not eliminated yet. They're not eliminated yet. It's really weird because they're not omniscient yet. So they have no obscurations, but they're still not omniscient. And that's debated a lot. That's one of the debates, like no obscuration in your continuum. So why are you not omniscient? Because you haven't closed the door to them coming. Yeah. So what? Open door, closed door. A thief is gone, right? Obscurations are gone. Very difficult. You can't say that they're already omniscient. That's impossible. So that's not an option. But they don't have anything. So the obscurations that obscure them from being a Buddha, they're gone. Yeah. So in the end, usually people say, yeah, but the cessation hasn't been achieved yet. And in the end, you can only debate it for that much. Debate it back and forth a little bit, but that's the answer. Usually, what else can you say? So it's a little hard. Yes, Anya, right? Yeah.
So this kicking out the thief happens many times.
Many different thieves. They're always different thieves. You kick out so this kicking out the thief happens many times, but they're always different thieves.
And the doors is only once. And once you close the door, then you...
the door is closed. Okay. It's it's kind of always a different door as well. Because the door is closed, how can they come, or maybe it's the same door. No, let's say it's the same door, because it's always a different thief. Your house is like it's not always a different door, it's the same door. So your house is the mind. The thieves are the obscurations. And you can't eliminate them all at the same time. So you kick them out at different times. Every time you absorb into the meditative equipoise, or you enter into the meditative equipoise, you kick out a thief. Close the door. But the rest is still inside. Right? I have to open it again, kick them out again, close it again. See what I'm saying? So there are many different thieves, and they are really part of your house. Right now we don't even recognize them. They're very much part of the house. So every time, you generate that direct antidote, as it's called, the direct antidote to a particular type, first a coarser type of misconception, well then open the door, kick them out and close again. I mean that open the door, that's what's in the text. Maybe there are more scientific kind of explanations nowadays, like kind of like chemical experiments or something that you do, getting rid of something and then making sure it doesn't return. I don't know, this is a very simple analogy I'm using. But anyway, yeah, get used to it. I mean, get used to it in the sense that there'll be more about this and you'll learn about all this. But the point is, again, and I find that weird. I find it weird myself. I needed some time to get used to it, to get rid of it, but it's already gone. However, it could return if you didn't continue with this meditative equipoise. Okay. Anyway, so this one teacher, definitely his view was, he thought, well, better to say, even in that moment when the obscurations are gone, you're still contaminated. Because you're still affected by the obscurations. Although they're no longer in your continuum, you're still affected by them negatively. So you're still tainted by them, you could say. All right. Yes?
Like you are talking about a single meditative equipoise.
Yes.
But the first part is removing it, and the second part is making sure it will not come back.
Yes, very good. So let me just repeat what Tommy is saying. So we have one single meditative equipoise. You divide it into two phases, not phases. Into two phases. I said phases last time. Dividing into two phases. The first part is when you get rid of the afflictions, and the second part is closing the door, that is making sure they don't return. Yes. What's your question?
And it's not really getting rid of it's getting rid of an imprint of a mind, right?
Well, it depends on what you get rid of. First you get rid of the afflictive obscurations. You don't always get rid of the imprints are usually like talking about the imprints of the afflictions. They are described as cognitive obscurations. But before you can tackle the cognitive obscurations, you need to get rid of the afflictive obscurations, which are not the imprints. Remember the analogy that is given for these? That's like the garlic and the vessel, right? So you have the wooden vessel that's full of garlic. The garlic is like the afflictions. You get rid of these, and once you've got rid of those, then you get rid of the smell that is left in the vessel. So the traces, the subtle imprints of them, yeah.
What is a bit weird for me when I imagine it? Because like the first moment of this meditative equipoise, there is no apprehension or appearance of objective existence. So
there's no appearance of inherent existence.
It's sort of already pushed away. And I would think the first moment pushes away the
no,
or appearance.
That has nothing to do. So your question is because there's no appearance of inherent existence, the imprints are no longer there. The imprints cannot affect that mind, but they're still there.
So when like you're pushing the imprints and
Yeah.
then closing the door.
Okay, so now you're talking about at the very end, when you have already eliminated the afflictive obscurations, now you're eliminating the cognitive obscurations. Okay, so when you do at that time, it doesn't matter whether you have the appearance of emptiness or not. It's got nothing to do with that. It doesn't relate to what not appears to the mind. You see what I'm saying? Just because inherent existence doesn't appear, you don't necessarily push out any of the imprints.
What does it mean to push away the imprints?
Pardon?
What does it mean to push away the imprints?
I mean to eliminate the imprints.
But
To eliminate.
how?
But you said that two different ways.
How? How does that happen, you mean?
Yeah, does it happen automatically? It sounds
Automatically,
like,
yes.
it just-
Automatically. You don't have to do anything. It's not like the mind is like, okay, let's push harder. It's just realizing emptiness. It's an automatic process. Which is why these analogies are all silly, because we know you have to push the vacuum cleaner in that way, or you have to push in that way. So all of these analogies don't capture really what's happening. It's really like all the mind does is absorbed in the direct realization of emptiness. It doesn't do anything else. And through that, because it's strong enough in a particular moment, it can eliminate particular obstructions. In the beginning, it's not that strong. In the beginning, and we talk more about the strength and how it becomes stronger, it comes quite soon actually. It's explained in the part that I gave you, in the handout I gave you today, I sent you today, it's already in there. So how do you strengthen that mind? The mind doesn't do anything but realize emptiness directly. However, it's got the strength now to eliminate certain obscurations. First the coarser ones, and then you have to strengthen the mind. The mind does not get stronger just on its own. You have to engage in practices. You rise from the meditative absorption, and the mind is strengthened through the other practices. But it doesn't do anything but realize emptiness directly. So you could say, partly because of the aspiration to get rid of whatever you want to get rid of. If you want to become a Buddha, I mean, when you understand Buddhahood, I mean, just saying I want to become a Buddha, no idea what it means to be a Buddha, that's not what we're talking about here. If you aspire to become a Buddha, have bodhicitta, in other words, you know what Buddhahood means. You want to get rid of the obscurations to Buddhahood. And that aspiration and the merit that it produces give that direct realization of emptiness the strength to eliminate more and more and more. But the mind itself doesn't do anything but realize emptiness directly. Tome, does that answer your question?
It's still a bit weird to me because like at this moment the mind it's not affected by the afflictive obscurations.
Yes.
But it's still removing this seed of the mind which grasps at objective existence to occur. And that's what's being removed at the afflictive obscurations. Like the seed of the tendency of the mind to hold to objective existence
Right.
is being removed.
Yes.
But what you are saying is that like there are two levels of removal. Like first pushing away the tendency and then making sure the tendency doesn't come back.
Okay. You can put it that way, yes.
That's how I understand it. But it's a bit weird to me because like I could imagine like, okay, so at the first moment you stop the tendency, like you don't have, the mind doesn't hold to objective existence anymore. And then the second part, you remove the tendency. But you're saying if there are two levels of removing the tendency.
Okay, I'll say it differently. Forget about the thief. You have two phases. In the first phase, you're meditating on emptiness, the afflictions are already gone, but the cessation is not attained yet. In the second phase, the afflictions are gone and now you've attained the cessation. That's not helpful, I know, it's not more helpful, but this is what literally it says in the text. First, you eliminate them and then you attain the elimination of them. You eliminate them, they're already gone, but you eliminate them in such a way that they're gone already in your continuum, and then you attain the elimination of them. And so usually when we, in debate, ask, what's the difference? You eliminate them, you attain the elimination of them. That's when we usually use the analogy. It's like you kick them out and you make sure they don't come back. That's how it's usually explained. But the point is really, that's just how the mind works. The afflictions, everything came from the mind. They came from apprehending inherent existence, which is the root of everything. The imprints left, the traces, the subtle traces, the tendencies left in the mind also came from that root misapprehension. So it makes sense that a mind that perceives the opposite cleanses this, right? It cleanses it. So by focusing on the absence of inherent existence, the mind is naturally purified. Like water purifying itself, if you like. Take water purifying itself. I don't know if you, is that possible? It's usually through the movement. Something purifying itself. A woodworm eating up the wood that it lives from, for instance. So the mind exists based on these obscurations. So it's that mind that then understands phenomena correctly. It removes the afflicted part of itself. So if you had, like, for instance, a woodworm, they used the woodworm example in a slightly different way, but never mind. So basically, if there's some material that harms the woodworm, let's say it's the wood and I don't know what else, some chemical in the wood. So if it eats up the chemical in the wood and is all just left with the pure substance, right? So it actually eats it up. It's that which, anyway, it doesn't work, that analogy. A woodworm eating up itself. I mean, you don't need any external help, in other words. It's the mind that cleanses itself through a correct understanding this time. So in that way, now the woodworm, forget about the woodworm, it doesn't work, I have to think about that first. But yeah, I can't say anything more than that. It seems weird, but I think, I don't really get where you're stuck. I don't really understand where you're stuck. Maybe you want to clarify that further, or?
We can try, but I'm not really sure what does it mean to remove the tendency of a mind in different ways.
To remove the tendency of the mind in different ways.
And why is it? Okay,
so you're basically saying the mind is the same, but it realizes the same, the object is the same. How can there be two phases?
No, it's not my problem.
Oh.
But what are the two stages? What is the distinction? Because so you eliminate it and then a cessation is achieved, but what does it mean? Like elimination and cessation to me sort of like the same meaning. Like I understand cessation as elimination.
The process of eliminating and having eliminated, those are not the same.
Right.
Eliminating and having eliminated, there's a difference.
But you said after the first part is finished, then the afflictions are eliminated.
They're no longer there. They're no longer there. I'm not saying they have been eliminated. I said they're not there. You eliminate them by way of that which is eliminating, not being present. But you haven't eliminated them yet. So you eliminate them by way. What are examples when you eliminate something and that which you eliminate is already gone? There must be examples in modern science.
Like theoretically, if you arise from that concentration, after after like they're gone.
No, that's not modern science. That's concentration and stuff. No. Like just let's think of examples, daily examples, where you are removing something, but that which you're removing is actually already gone. Let's take medicine, certain medicines. When you take the medicine against something, the symptoms disappear right away, but the disease, the cause of the disease is not yet gone. If you think along these lines, so you want to remove the symptoms by removing the main cause. Sometimes, like for instance, Tibetans in the past, many Tibetans have TB. They've suffered from TB when they came from Tibet. So many of them, they had to take medicine, like a course of medication for 6 months or so. But sometimes they were tempted to stop too early because the symptoms were gone. So they felt they were better and they stopped taking the medicine. Maybe in a similar way here. All you're doing is taking the medicine. You're taking the medicine and you want to get rid of the symptoms. The main cause is, whatever is the underlying cause, is not what really bothers you, what makes you sick. It's really your lungs being, being what's the word, impaired, your lungs being not able to fully function. And in that way, you take the medicine, you already there, it's gone, but you're still eliminating the disease. You're eliminating the disease and have not attained the elimination yet. Would that work? And all you're doing is taking the medicine. You continuously take the medicine. So you're not doing anything more than that. Likewise, the mind that realizes emptiness directly is not doing anything more but realizing emptiness. Does that help a little bit more? No? Okay. Well, never mind then. Just think about it further. It'll take some time to understand it. Of course, the usual analogies, they always fall short. You could say, of course, but something is happening on a subtle level that we can explain. We can't explain that with a direct realization, or maybe there is an explanation, we just don't know it. Right? Okay. Anyway, it's good that we discussed it, because at least now it makes sense. Why a sentient being is still contaminated, even though in their continuum the afflictions, the obscurations are gone, but they have not eliminated them yet. Yes, Rita?
Like, as I understood it so far, is that what is not gone is the karmic seeds from previous lives. Like, we have eliminated our anger in this life, but we might have over many lifetimes accumulated seeds of anger, and this still need to be purified. That's how I understood it so far. Is that what we're talking about, or is it something different?
Okay. You see, the thing is, there are many different stages. So what do you start off with? You start, in the very beginning, you get rid of the intellectually acquired afflictions and their seeds. So together with the seeds means the potential for them to arise again, not the imprints. Now, karmic imprints, when we talk about karmic imprints, I mean, there's so many different types of imprints, and that becomes a lot more complicated. But actually, I believe, and this is a difficult point, imprint. Like, are they all the same imprint? Do you have like karmic imprints, and then imprints that are tendencies, and imprints that are obstructions? Like, when do you get rid of all of these? I believe they're all the same imprints, but they have different functions. They have the function of ripening in the form of a certain experience, for instance. So an imprint left because of anger. You leave an imprint in the mind. When you purify the negative action, do you get rid of the imprint? No. You get rid of the imprint's ability to ripen, or the imprint's potency to ripen into a negative experience. But the imprint is still there. So the karmic, it's no longer a karmic imprint. You cannot call it a karmic imprint because it no longer leads to a certain experience that is the result of the karma. But it's still an imprint. It still obscures the mind. It has the function of obscuring the mind. Okay, but this is just purifying karma through the four powers, for instance. But that was not Rika's question. What happens is there are many different levels First, the intellectually acquired ones, you get rid of them. Okay, those are done. That's on the path of seeing. Now you have the innate ones, the coarsest level of innate afflictions, together with their seeds. Seeds here doesn't mean imprint. Seeds means the potential for them to arise again. What would be an example of coarse anger? The kind of anger that triggers an action, such as insulting another person or even killing them, whatever. Those are very coarse types of anger. They're strong. They're so strong that they can give rise to an action. And then there's subtler types. So every time you enter a meditative equipoise, you get rid of a progressively subtler type of affliction. Now, what about karma? That's very complicated. This is really difficult, and I haven't found very satisfactory answers. But in general, I guess you could say negative karma is eliminated first. Negative karma. So in other words, you get rid of negative karma, right? You get rid of negative karma. This is so complicated. But the negative, yes, so you get rid of that when you become liberated. There's no longer any negative karma. There's no longer any suffering. As a bodhisattva, you become liberated on the 8th ground. So the karmic imprints, therefore, the negative karmic imprints, they're also gone. In other words, that potential, but the imprint is still there, except the karmic potency, that is gone. I guess you could explain it that way. So that aspect of the karma that could give rise to suffering, that's gone. And at the very end, so you've become liberated now. All the afflictions are gone. Contaminated karma is gone. Basically, you have to say contaminated karma is gone. So that which was previously called a karmic imprint can no longer be called that, because that was a contaminated karmic imprint, and that you get rid of that. You're liberated now. Now there's still imprints. What they do is they obscure your mind. So the imprints are still there. You have no longer any afflictions. There's no longer any potential for the afflictions to return, which are the seeds. Karma can no longer ripen. Karmic imprints, or the imprints are no longer of a karmic type. And all you have left are now the obscurations to omniscience, which means you have the imprints that obscure you from being a Buddha. All they do now, all the potential that is left with them is to keep you from becoming a Buddha. Does that make sense? No.
Yeah, like I study with Tupten children, and she always compares the garlic stuff to the example with karmic seeds from previous lives. So I was wondering if you're talking about the same garlic in the pot, or that's a different thing.
The garlic, she says the garlic is like the karmic seeds?
Yeah, like the karmic imprints that are left from previous lives.
I've never seen it this way. In the text, they usually talk about the afflictions and their seeds, just calling that the garlic. The afflictive obscurations, that which keeps us to become liberated, that is like the garlic. And once you get rid of the garlic, the obscurations to liberation, and you have become liberated, then you're left with the smell. I've never heard this used in the way the children uses it, so I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what she means with that. Maybe she used the analogy differently, but in the text, I've never seen it used any other way. Yeah. Anyway, but the point is really that imprints. I mean, what are imprints anyway? Our problem is when we say imprint, there seems to be like something solidly there. It appears like a real imprint, like an indentation maybe in our mind. And of course, that's not what's meant. It's really just a potency in the mind. Now, usually we have no problem with potential. We don't have a problem with potential. But in this case, we do. Like if you think about it, when we say a seed has the potential to give rise to a sprout, we just accept it. It's a potency. But where is that potential? Can't find it. We talk about it, it's labeled. What do we actually call the potential? Well, based on the fact that a seed can be observed to give rise to a sprout, so we talk about a potential. We label potential. But it's not like there's a little area in there that's the potential. I mean, it's like this blue area is the potential. No, it's like something we label on the basis of what arises from a seed. Right? So similarly here, we have a mind, and it has the potential to give rise to suffering. Then we call it a karmic imprint. I mean, something was done to the mind as we acted in a particular way, and that action left a potency, which then results in a certain experience. Right? So that tendency of that mind to give rise to that experience we call imprint. And if that is removed, when it's no longer possible for such karma to ripen, we've attained liberation, therefore it's no longer possible for that karma to ripen, we say the karmic imprint is gone. But there's still imprints, there's still tendencies in the mind that obscure the mind from becoming omniscient. You see what I'm saying? So we solidify things, unfortunately. Our mind likes to see it in a very concrete way. This seed, that. I do the same thing. But when I talk to my teachers, Geshe Damde once said this. He said, these imprints, don't think of the imprints as like literally imprints in the mind. He says, just the mind changes. It has a different potential now. And in order to grasp that fully, we call it an imprint. Yeah. Anyway, so anyway, karma, even the Buddha has karma. Karma is not a problem. Karma means volitional action. A Buddha's action are karma. They're volitional actions. They're intentionally performed actions. I mean, the Buddha doesn't have a conceptual mind that wants to do this and that and so forth, like the way we have a conceptual mind. But that doesn't matter. Still, in the text, it's very clear that there's still karmic actions. Still actions performed by a mind. And that's karma, by definition. When we say karmic imprints, we usually mean contaminated karma. Contaminated actions. And once you eliminate their root cause, the karma itself is gone. I mean, the result is gone. Does that make sense? Okay. Anyway, sorry, I went into maybe too many details. Maybe I confused you a little bit. Well, anyway, let's see. So, by contrast, an uncontaminated phenomenon is entirely free from both the ignorance that apprehends intrinsic existence and its imprints. Minds that are uncontaminated include the meditative equipoise, directly realizing emptiness and the continuum of sentient beings, as well as all the sense and mental consciousnesses of a Buddha. These minds perceive their objects exactly as they are, without mistaken appearance, and are therefore untouched by any obscuring influence. Likewise, the remaining aggregates and all other qualities of a Buddha are uncontaminated, and the Buddhas themselves, as beings that are uncontaminated, right? So the Buddhas themselves, they are uncontaminated. So you have the aggregates that are uncontaminated, you have the beings, the living beings that are uncontaminated, and those are the Buddhas. Uncontaminated places are the pure realms of a Buddha, which are not the product of ignorance or its imprints. So the places where a Buddha resides, they say that a Buddha manifests a pure realm through the power of the mind of a Buddha. I mean, we manifested this environment through our mind. So likewise, a Buddha manifests a pure realm, a pure area. Other examples of uncontaminated phenomena include permanent phenomena. So anything that is permanent is uncontaminated. All permanent phenomena are uncontaminated. They're not tainted by ignorance. They're not affected by it. So other examples of uncontaminated phenomena include permanent phenomena such as emptiness, truth of cessation, so the cessations of the afflictions, or the mere absence of a cup on an empty table. Okay, wait. Absence of cup on this table. right? That's not obscured, that's not contaminated, it's just an absence. But it exists. Now it doesn't. Now it does. Now it doesn't. Right? Okay. For these do not change from moment to moment. So actually, now the absence exists, but it doesn't exist. It's not a kind of an active phenomenon that's changing moment by moment. It's just an absence. So it doesn't change from moment by moment, and thus cannot be affected by ignorance or its imprints. Okay. This is stated in Chandrakirti's clear words. From the perspective of the nature that is the object of uncontaminated gnosis, free of the obscuring cataract of ignorance, things do not exist. Okay. This quote explains that when we look at reality as it is perceived by an uncontaminated gnosis, an uncontaminated mind, directly realizing emptiness, that is by a mind completely free from the cataract or floaters of the root misconception and its imprints that usually cloud our vision, things are not found to exist in the way they usually appear to us. Okay, cataract, floaters, what are we talking about? Okay, the term floaters of ignorance may be more accurate in this context, I would say. I don't think cataract is the right word. They usually say that there's certain, they use this example, our mental consciousness or all our minds are right now like an eye consciousness that is affected by an eye illness. Right? So what is that eye illness they talk about? They say it's the appearance of falling hair. It's like they say there's an eye illness where you have the appearance of like strings that are like hair, constantly falling. So when you perceive things, you perceive them with that wrong. I mean, things appear through these stringy kind of hair-like substances. Can you imagine? Like you look around and it always seems like there's strings in your vision. So you can still see things, you can still interact with the environment, which is why Lama Tsongkhapa says you see conventional truth, but they're always seen with the overlayer of these strings. So this is like our experience right now. We can function in the world, however, we have that mistaken appearance, like an eye disease. And that disease is very often called a cataract. But cataract doesn't create strings and hair-like appearances, which is why I think floaters is a better word. So the term floaters of ignorance may be more accurate in this context. In the scriptures, a well-known analogy for the appearance of an intrinsic existence to the consciousnesses of ordinary sentient beings is that of an eye disease causing the perception of falling hairs and apprentices. Dashit Zanang. In Tibetan, it's Dashit Zanang. So in other words, like chunks of falling hair, or the appearance of chunks of falling hair. Some translations render this as cataracts. Yet cataracts do not produce such an appearance. Rather, they cause vision to become cloudy or blurry, often with faded colors, and halos around lights. By contrast, there's a disease called eye floaters, which correspond much more closely to the analogy. Floaters, it's used in the plural, typically result from age-related changes in the vitreous, the jelly-like substance that fills the eyeball and helps maintain its shape. As the vitreous partially liquefies due to advanced age, it pulls away from the inner surface of the eyeball, clumps together and becomes stringy. These clumps block some of the light entering the eye and cast tiny shadows on the retina, creating the impression of squiggly lines or hair-like threads drifting across the visual field. Okay, I know it's a little bit thick. But you know, cataract, I know I've gone a little bit extreme. I could have put a footnote. Yeah, maybe I could have put a footnote, never mind. But the thing is, floaters has to be, I mean, like, it's Darshan Zanang from beginning to end, you know, it's like the hair, like the falling hair. And people are wondering, like, my mom had cataract, she doesn't have falling hair. So to explain it logically, there must be a disease like that, and it's probably floaters. So, yeah, it was a little bit. So it makes sense that these squiggly lines, you need to perceive that. In this way, the scriptures explain, just as someone with this visual impairment perceives objects distorted by the appearance of falling hairs or hair-like strings, ordinary beings perceive all phenomena distorted by the false appearance of intrinsic existence. I think the example is actually really beautiful. I think the example is really beautiful. The example of like an eye disease, because there are two stages. Initially, they describe that later on also in the text, you'll come across that. Initially, you look at the cup and you keep wiping the cup. You see some strings or something and you're like, oh, it's over there. It's like the appearance has got nothing to do with my eyes. There's really something there. And you hold on to the existence of hair out there. So they say you keep wiping the vessel, thinking there's something there. Keep wiping your glasses, for instance. Oh, my glasses are dirty. Not realizing it actually comes from your own eyes. So that would be like believing in the inherent existence of phenomena. We believe in it. Or to give another example, like for instance, when you look in the mirror and you first don't know, yes, it appears to be your own face, but you actually believe there to be a person, another person. So you're fooled by the appearance and believe there actually to be another person, don't realize it's yourself. Like children or animals, we can watch them have that experience, believing there's another being there. Until at some point we understand, oh, so this is just an image of my own face, and then we still have the appearance, but we're no longer fooled by it. Similarly here, or with the eye disease, you believe there's really something there. So first we understand phenomena don't exist in that way. That overlayer of hairs that is inherent existence, you superimpose inherent existence, or you superimpose that stringiness, those hair-like appearances. So initially you are fooled by that, but then you understand it's a wrong consciousness. So that's when you realize emptiness, you understand, you don't trust your appearance. But the appearance remains with you, and only a Buddha is cured of floaters. No longer that appearance. Does that make sense? Okay. Do you think I should put the explanation with the floaters and in a should I put it in a footnote? It's fine. Anyone who opens this and it starts with this part, they're like, what are we talking about? What text is this? Anyway, okay, all right. Until the attainment of the Buddha's ground, so Buddhahood, the only mental state not tainted by imprints of ignorance is the non-conceptual gnosis of an Arya in meditative equipoise. Such gnosis comes about intermittently. It's only sometimes that it's there. For when Aryas arise from the meditative equipoise, their mental states are once again tainted by the imprints of ignorance. So up to the very end, as a sentient being, so who's the last sentient being before becoming a Buddha? A bodhisattva, a being on the 10th bodhisattva ground, so the 10th level. Almost every mental state remains influenced by the subtle traces or imprints of the root ignorance. The only occasion when the mind is free from the control of these imprints is during the meditative equipoise directly realizing emptiness experienced by an Arya, a being who's at least attained the path of seeing. Okay, on the path of seeing you realize emptiness directly. So only in those moments when you realize emptiness directly, you're not affected by these imprints. So a being who is at least, as explained above, this non-conceptual wisdom is the only mind of an Arya who has not yet reached full awakening that is free from contamination. For such an Arya, however, this freedom is only temporary. As soon as they arise from the non-dual gnosis, their conceptual consciousnesses and direct perceptions, including their conceptual mind realizing emptiness and yogic direct perception directly realizing impermanence, once again become tainted by the imprints. Okay? We've discussed it so many times, but the text hadn't really stated that yet. So it's just intermittent. The taint of ignorance exists up until the 7th ground, Lama Tsongkhapa says. The stain of ignorance itself disappears for those on the 8th ground, and up as well, and up, no, sorry. The stain of ignorance itself disappears for those on the 8th ground and up, as well as for the 2 types of arhats, since the pollutant ignorance has ceased, but they still possess taints in the form of residual imprints of ignorance. So, as noted earlier, bodhisattvas remain tainted by the root ignorance up to the 7th bodhisattva ground. Okay? First ground is what path? Path of seeing. Second ground is path of meditation. How many grounds are on the path of meditation? 9. 9. So up to the 7th, because number 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So 9. The first ground is the path of seeing. The remaining 9 grounds are on the path of meditation. Right? So if you think of like first ground, path of seeing, then 2 to 10, path of meditation. And then of those altogether, from 1 to 10 up to 7, you're not liberated. And then on the last 3, you are liberated but not enlightened yet. So 8, 9, 9, and 10, you're still a bodhisattva, but you've been liberated. Bodhisattvas remain tainted by the root ignorance up to the 7th bodhisattva ground. Upon reaching the 8th ground, they attain liberation from cyclic existence, which is the irreversible cessation of all mental afflictions together with their seeds. All right, so this is all gone. The seeds, the potential for the seeds is a weird word, but it really just means the potential for the mental afflictions to arise again. And so in the case of Rika's question, also the contaminated karmic imprints, they're no longer there. I mean, the imprints themselves are there, but the potential of creating karmic experiences, contaminated karmic experiences, they're gone with liberation. At that stage, they have eliminated both the intellectually acquired and innate forms of the root misconception. So the intellectually acquired ignorance and the innate forms, the ones we're born with, but also the intellectually acquired ones that we, just make up based on our innate sense of ignorance, along with the afflictions that arise from it and are no longer affected by the root ignorance. The same applies to the 2 types of arhats, as Lama Tsongkhapa said. So who are they? Hearers and solitary realizers who have achieved their goal of self-liberation. Like bodhisattvas on the 8th ground, they too have eradicated the afflictive obstructions and are no longer tainted by ignorance. So, who got rid of ignorance? Who's no longer affected by ignorance? Anyone who's become liberated. Self-liberation, of course, in the case of hearers and solitary realizers. And then bodhisattvas, when they reach the 7th ground. Nevertheless, even at these advanced stages, the cognitive obstructions remain. These refer not only to the imprints of the root ignorance, but also to those of the other mental afflictions. So we talk about imprints, the imprints of ignorance, but implied in that is also the imprints of the other afflictions. Due to the imprints of the root ignorance, all phenomena continue to appear as if they intrinsically exist. Even emptiness itself, when it is apprehended conceptually, it still appears to exist inherently. The effects of the imprints of the mental afflictions, such as attachment and aversion, will be explained below. So Lama Tsongkhapa explains, he actually talks about what they cause, what tendencies they give rise to. So they're different, the tendencies, so the imprints, the traces, the subtle traces of ignorance are different than the subtle traces of anger and attachment. They also affect the mind, but in a different way, which will be explained below. Only Buddhas have completely overcome these subtle tendencies. All right, so this is what we've already discussed before, but it's explained here, it's summarized here again. Again, when the commentary refers to the first ground as that which bears the name of non-dual wisdom, it's saying that the gnosis is free of dualistically perceiving subject and object as separate from each other. It is not referring merely to a gnosis free of the two extremes. All right, so what does Lama Tsongkhapa say here? He mentions Acharya Chandrakirti's auto-commentary, which describes the first ground as that which bears the name of non-dual wisdom. Dual. Non-dual. What does that even mean, to be non-dual? Okay, so that word is used so much in non-Buddhist context. The dual perception of this, the dual perception of that. In Buddhism, it means something very specific. It doesn't mean the same as it does in other traditions. And it's always something bad, right? Dual is always bad. It really just means two, basically, right? Dual. Yeah, and the dualism between God and humans I've heard, and yeah, many different. But anyway, the Buddhist view is different here. So there's only one non-dual mind. That is the mind that realizes emptiness directly. It's said to be non-dual. And dual is not necessarily bad from a Buddhist point of view. It's not necessarily bad. Like a Buddha's mind, when the Buddha perceives conventional truth, yeah, you could say it's not a non-dual mind, like just from the aspect of seeing conventional truth. But anyway, that's debatable. But okay, let's see. All right, so what does it mean to present? So the scriptures present several explanations for why this mind, the direct realization of emptiness, is non-dual. That's important. Why is it non-dual? Some scriptures state that it's entirely free from the appearance of both intrinsic existence and conventional truth. Okay, so no appearance of intrinsic existence. That's good. That's good, absolutely. And no conventional truth appears to it. Although these 2 points are not mentioned here. Lama Tsongkhapa doesn't mention it here in this context. Also, certain scholars maintain that this does not imply an absence of duality, since neither intrinsic existence nor conventional truth constitute dual aspects from which the meditative equipoise is free. So there's a contemporary master from Drepung Losang, his name is Geshe Pandentaba. He's very famous, Geshe Pandentaba. You've heard of him, yeah. So he says in one of his writings, and he's also said it in classes, that he's saying, just because the mind is free from intrinsic existence and conventional truth, that makes it non-dual? Where's the dual in there? Intrinsic existence is just one. Conventional truth is just one. So where does the duality come in? But in some texts, it definitely mentions these two. The auto-commentary describes another reason. So it doesn't talk about intrinsic existence, doesn't talk about conventional truth. The auto-commentary describes another reason why the direct realization of emptiness is non-dual. What is it? For this mind, there's no sense of distance or separation between the subject, the meditative absorption itself, and its object, the emptiness of all phenomena. So the mind that realizes emptiness directly realizes the emptiness of everything, of all phenomena. Phenomena don't appear, just the emptiness. But for this mind, there is no sense of distance or separation between the subject, the meditative absorption itself, and its object, the emptiness of all phenomena. Usually there's a sense, right? There's a sense, I'm here, over here, perceiving something, and what I perceive is over there. So there's a kind of a sense of a distance, isn't there? The mind and its object. And sometimes when we're really absorbed into something, really absorbed in something, we forget about ourselves. We forget about perception, but it's still not the same absorption, the same lack of duality or lack of distance that you experience here. So the auto-commentary describes, for this mind, there's no sense of distance or separation between the subject, the mind itself, or its object, the emptiness of all phenomena. Rather, the experience is one of complete indistinguishability I can't even say that. Indistinguishability. There's the sense of complete indistinguishability, like water poured into water. When you pour water into water, you don't see this is water and this is one water, this is the other water. So that's the sense to that mind. Totally absorbed, no sense of subject, mind and object being different. In other words, for that meditative equipoise, there is a sense that it itself and the lack of intrinsic existence of all phenomena are inseparable, just as water poured into water cannot be distinguished. Okay. A more precise rendering of, and this is now what Lama Tsongkhapa or what Geshe Thupten translates, it's saying that the gnosis is free of dualistically perceiving subject and object as separate from each other, would be, so I believe there is a better way to translate this. I would translate this particular sentence. It's saying that the gnosis, that meditative equipoise, is free of dualistically perceiving subject and object as separate from each other. It's saying that the gnosis is free of subject and object appearing dualistically, as if separate from another. This is a little bit difficult. Why? I don't know, sometimes Geshe Thupten Jimba, he uses appearing and perceiving in the same way. But I don't think that's correct. I think you have to...
Also makes this adjustment sometimes.
Pardon?
Geshe Thupten also makes similar adjustments sometimes.
Yeah, I don't understand why. Because, and I tell you why. The reason is that perceive and appear convey different meanings, in particular in English. So the English verb to perceive generally means to notice or become aware of something. That's different to appearing, right? To notice or become aware of something. So our mind notices things, becomes aware of things, but appearing is a different matter, right? Something can appear to my mind without my mind being aware of it. For instance, I look in this room, the subtle atoms of this wall appear to my eye consciousness, but I'm not aware of them. And it accords with the Tibetan word dzimba, which in the context of the mind can also be translated as to apprehend. When you study about the mind, one of the basic explanations that you receive is that the mind has something appear to it, and it perceives something. Oftentimes what appears is perceived, but not necessarily. So therefore it's not the same. To perceive something is not the same as to appear. Because although in the case of the gnosis directly realizing emptiness, so in the case of the gnosis directly realizing emptiness, actually what perceives appears to it, and what appears to it is perceived. So this is fine here in this context. But there are other minds to which what is perceived does not appear, and minds to which what appears is not perceived. I think it's important to distinguish in general. So appearing to a mind and being perceived by a mind. If you look at the footnote, for instance, when an eye consciousness apprehends a table, the table's subtle impermanence appears to it. Why? Because the subtle atoms appear and they are constantly changing. The subtle atoms of this tablecloth, they appear to the mind without my mind being aware of them. And guess what? They're in constant movement. So the impermanence of this tablecloth that appears to my mind also appears to my mind. Yet the mind, my eye consciousness, does not perceive the table's momentary change, for such impermanence is too subtle to be apprehended by an eye consciousness. It's too subtle. The atoms, they're too subtle. So to say it's perceived, I mean, especially because the English word, it conveys something very specific, to be noticed, to be aware of. My mind is not aware of that. Likewise, when we trace the form of a vase with our hands, in the case of a blind person, right, if you're blind, the tactile quality of the vase appears to our body consciousness and is perceived by it. So the tactile aspect. At the same time, that body consciousness apprehends the shape of the vase without the shape itself appearing to it. right? You implicitly, that doesn't appear to your body consciousness. It appears to your eye consciousness, the shape of the vase, right? The shape of the vase, it's just the textile experience. And through touching it, you implicitly know the shape. Doesn't appear to your body consciousness, the shape. For the only sense consciousness to which the vase's shape appears is the eye consciousness. Because shape can only appear together with color. The shape of something can only appear together with color. If you see all the same color, if there's like, let's say there's a vase behind a backdrop of like a wall, if it's all the same color, you can't see it. A shape can only appear to your mind together with colors. So a blind person can't see color, and therefore they can't have the appearance of shape. But you can taste, you can kind of go like, ah. And so you know, without the shape appearing to your body consciousness, you can know it. Right? Or there's another example they give. To your eye consciousness, to my eye consciousness, the table appears. But the fact, so my eye consciousness has the appearance of the table, but my eye consciousness also knows, also is aware that there is nothing which is a table and not a table. My eye consciousness knows that without appearing to it. Or my eye consciousness knows the opposite from not table. It knows not table, but it doesn't appear to it. It knows implicitly. So if I were to ask you, was this not a table? You say, yeah, because not table means it is. So the opposite, it's weird to say that, but like, you know, like it knows that this is the opposite of not a table. It knows that, but that doesn't appear to it. Like not table doesn't appear to my sense faculty, right? So that shows that there are things my mind can know without appearing to it, but there are also things that appear to my mind. So that's why I think it's important to distinguish. Here the Tibetan word is appear, it's not perceive. And I really have no idea why this is so persistent, because it's, I mean, if it wasn't defined in the way it is, but it never talks about appearance. And in Tibetan it's very clear. To perceive something, to apprehend something is not the same as it appearing. So just to clarify that, but I haven't had the chance to ask any of them. There's also an important difference between saying subject and object appear distant from another, and subject and object appear as if distant from one another. That's an important distinction. Again, not translated, but very clear in Tibetan. Dawurna. It's a very small word, short word, but it has huge meaning. So it appears as if. The first phrasing, if I don't say as if, implies that subject and object being distant from one another is what appears to that mind, and is therefore its object. This cannot be correct in the context of the meditative equipoise directly realizing emptiness, because such a mind has no object other than emptiness itself. So it's to that mind there is a sense as if subject and object were separate, were inseparable. Like my eye consciousness, for instance, there's a sense to that eye consciousness as if it and its object were separate. But it doesn't appear to that mind. It doesn't appear. It's not like, oh, it appears to my mind that they're separate. No, but there's that sense that appears. So it's a difficult way of saying it. In English, I use the word, there's a sense. It's not saying that it really perceives that or it appears it. But it has that sense of like, subject and object being as if distant. Okay. Similarly here, with the mind realizing emptiness directly, all that appears to it is emptiness. So it doesn't, subject and the mind itself and the emptiness don't appear separate. They appear as if separate, or there's a sense that they are. That's why I think it's, and in Tibetan they always mention, in English you add like there's a sense that. As if. I've mentioned these words. In Tibetan, you only have that short word, dawur. But that makes all the difference. So, dawurna, minang. So, dawurna means as if, it appears as if but it doesn't appear. It appears as if, but it doesn't appear. There's this distinction. I don't know whether I really confused you here. Did I? No? Does it make sense? Okay. So it seems to be like if you look at the text, if you just hear me say it, it may be difficult. But again, there's a difference between saying subject and object appear as if distant from another. Because if we say subject and object being distant from another, that if that appears to the mind, then it becomes its object. And its object is only emptiness. The second phrasing, when you say subject and object appear as if, so there's a sense as if, however, indicates that for that gnosis, there's no sense of separation between subject and object. Yet that very inseparability does not appear to it. It's just like a sense the mind has. Returning to illuminating the intent. So this was a little bit off topic, right? I just wanted to, I don't want to, I think the translation is amazing. And even though I sometimes don't agree, like I wouldn't translate the first ground as perfect joy, I would say atmos joy, because the translator has already translated the word perfect in a different context. So perfect is like parchin, parutuchimba, that's translated as perfection. Or sometimes yandarba, which means correct. He translates that as perfect. So why, when you have another word for a different word in Tibetan, you don't use utmost, right? But never mind, it's not a problem. It's not wrong as such. But here in this case, this is one of the very few times when I would say, I'm not sure this is correct. Yeah. All right, but anyway, let's return to illuminating the intent, which means we'll actually leave it at that because I have some questions I want to address. But I'm a little bit concerned it was too much all over the place today. So let me at least wrap it up a little bit. We spoke a lot about contaminated and uncontaminated. And in this context, of course, I introduced to you this difficult idea of the mind realizing emptiness directly, serving as an antidote or function as an antidote to the different obstructions. You've learned that there are two phases to that mind realizing emptiness directly. First phase, eliminating certain obstructions, certain ones, I need to stress because there's always different ones. And the later phase, having eliminated them. But the difficulty, of course, was introducing the idea that what is being eliminated is not even there in that moment while it is eliminated. So what is there to eliminate? There's no object to be eliminated. There is an object to be eliminated, but in that moment it's not there. So how else to put it? Yeah. And we've used the analogy of kicking someone out of a house and closing the door as the two phases. But anyway, having said this, the person who's in the last moment of as a sentient being, for the last time, they're now realizing emptiness directly as a sentient being before they become enlightened. They have no obscurations, but we would still say their minds are tainted or affected by the imprints. Although they're gone now, but they're still not omniscient, which is why you can say even that person is still contaminated. Although no ignorance, no imprints of ignorance, but still tainted by the imprints. How that works? Well, I don't know. But again, they haven't eliminated the imprints yet, so they still are affected by them. Then uncontaminated, we've heard there are beings who are uncontaminated, the Buddhas. There are minds that are uncontaminated, mind realizing emptiness directly. There are places that are uncontaminated, the Buddha realms, as they're called. So the realms in which, in particular, Buddhas reside. And then we continued with, what did we continue with? Oh, yes, so we just then talked more specifically about that direct realization of emptiness that is not affected by the eye disease or the floaters of ignorance. And I explained that analogy, which is used very widely in the text again and again, Indian as well as Tibetan texts, saying that we as sentient beings, like someone who suffers from not cataract, but from floaters, having the appearance of falling hair, of like stringy substances moving in front of our eyes. And initially we believe them to be existent, so we hold on to them. But once we understand, we're just like believing in inherent existence, but we can remove that belief, can remove the ignorance, and only be left with the appearances. So the appearance will remain. We no longer believe that there are stringy kind of falling hair or what have you, but the appearance is still there. The appearance is caused by, in this case, floaters, and in the case of that which the analogy indicates or describes, are the imprints. So the appearance of inherent existence. So only a Buddha is free from the eye disease of floaters. Only a Buddha is free from the imprints. All right. So we had a discussion on floaters, and then Lama Tsongkhapa explained, well, for how long do we have this disease? And he explains, I mean, even a 10th ground bodhisattva is still affected. Every sentient being is still affected by the floaters of ignorance. And the only occasion which is intermittent is the direct realization of emptiness. Only then are they not affected. Okay. And yeah, for you that seems like a repetition. I've said it so many times in the past, so, but Lama Tsongkhapa only gets to it here. But of course, they are no longer affected by the ignorance once they reach the 8th ground. Up to the 7th ground, they also still believe. They're still affected by the root ignorance, in the sense that the root ignorance still arises in their continuum, and the other afflictions, therefore. Upon reaching the 8th ground, of course, they are liberated, just as hearers and solitary realizers attain liberation, and Bodhisattva does too. And then we talked about non-duality. That was the last thing. So the mind that realizes emptiness directly, why is it non-dual? Well, because there's no sense of subject and object separate. So this whole thing about appearing or not, never mind, I'm not using perceiving the same way. So I just wanted to clarify that. But there's a sense as if subject and object were indistinguishable. Okay, so that's what we covered today. Wasn't that much? A lot of discussion on floaters and what have you, but never mind. Okay, great. So now I'd like to address some of the questions. Something that Rika said last time. I wasn't happy with my answer, actually, to be honest. Rika asks, what does it mean? I can't find it now, but are there new questions? No, there aren't any. Oh, good. Oh, yes, there are. Okay. So Rika asks, basically, how about the relationship? What is the relationship between conventional truth, or conventional truth exists in relationship to valid cognizers? Is a conventional truth just established by valid cognizers, and what makes for valid cognition? So first of all, yes, absolutely. Conventional truth is defined as that which is known by a conventional valid cognizer. Yeah, so the question is, what does it mean to be a conventional valid cognizer and a valid cognition in the first place? How do you determine that something is valid? Valid cognition basically means it knows its object according to the way, in accordance to the way it exists, in accordance with the way it exists. All right, so actually, right from the beginning, the Sautrantika school, which is one of the lower philosophical schools in Buddhism, they talk about existent means that which is an object of valid cognition by a mind that's valid. So what makes it valid? And that is simple from the point of view of the human realm. If you just stick to the human realm, right? I mean, we do look at conventions, of course, here. Like, for instance, what does it mean to be a table? Okay, a table, it's defined. And then if something, like, what is the definition? It has certain characteristics that distinguish that particular phenomenon from everything that is not it. So valid cognition, and of course, calling it a table, that is a conventionality. You could call it something else. But the point is, if it has these characteristics and it performs these functions, if we have agreed to call it a table, then we can say conventionally it is a table. And the mind that perceives this object to be a table because of these characteristics is a valid mind, right? So that is, without analyzing too much, pretty straightforward. So a table is a table, a chair is a chair. Not from its own side. I mean, the Buddhist idea of phenomena being merely labeled works perfectly. A snake is a snake, a rope is a rope, right? Like a rope can look like a snake. We may mistake it for a snake, but if we check using valid cognition whether it has the characteristics of a snake, for instance, a rope that's like speckled and coiled like a snake, when we look, or even like a toy snake, like a rubber snake. So that rubber snake, does it perform the functions of a snake? No, it doesn't. Can't move, it doesn't have a mind, it's not a living being. Therefore, my mind can establish, a valid cognition can establish, this is not a snake. Right? So that's pretty straightforward. Then there are certain objects that are less straightforward. It's beautiful or not. Is it beautiful? Is there a valid cognition that... Well, here it's kind of like the relativity. Everything is relative, but the relativity is more obvious. Or is this cup, or is this phone long or short? Right? Well, you could say it's both. It's long and short. In relation to one object, it's long, and in relation to another object, it's short. Okay, that also works. And what about beauty? All right. Then what about things that are hidden? Like we call them hidden phenomena. Well, they're hidden for us, but for a Buddha, they're very obvious. So are they hidden? Are they obvious? Well, again, there's an answer to that. So all this is okay within like our human existence. But then, of course, when we talk about other existences, then it becomes difficult. So within the conventional framework of the human life, humans on this earth, we can kind of delineate. But the moment we analyze a little further, things are not as clear-cut. But no surprise, that's why we say phenomena don't exist inherently. Valid cognition doesn't exist inherently, nothing exists inherently. And the moment we look closer, things start to disappear. Right? The moment we start, so that's no surprise. I mean, in the sense, like, what is valid cognition? If it's valid for us, is it valid in general? Like, what is it for being on another planet? If they don't use it like a table, like the function. So like even humans on this earth, is it not a table? If someone else uses it as a bed, is that a bed? Or, I don't know, a body of water, is it something to drink, or is it a habitat for a fish, for instance? I mean, it's like, and then things are like, oh, it's not that clear cut. But ordinarily, when we talk about, especially in the beginning, this exists, there's a valid cognition, we kind of pretend it's clear-cut, because that's how we look at the world. First, it's important to get the basis down, the basics down. This is what exists, this is what doesn't, this is what we mean with it. But then as we learn, especially the different philosophical schools, and then the Prasangika school, we realize it's not always as clear-cut. So I didn't mean to confuse anyone. I think I did with my answer. I right away went into that, like, it's not as clear cut. But in general, yes, I mean, life would be really confusing if there wasn't some clarity. I mean, to some degree, I don't know, an apple is an apple, an orange is an orange. Yeah, so, of course, I think Jimmy also mentions it. I'm not sure it was Jimmy. He talks about like certain inferences. I think he says like, oh, for instance, Dharmakirti speaks about past and future lives, taking the example of wherever there's smoke, there's fire. And he's saying, well, if there's a world where there is smoke, but there is no fire, what happens then? How can you say wherever there's smoke, there's fire? All the correct reasons that we establish, like whatever is A is necessarily B, can we be sure it's always true in every universe? Yeah, that's a difficult question, isn't it? Like we sometimes infer the existence of something, because valid cognition can be direct, but it can also be inferential. I cannot see the smoke in the building next door, but I can inferentially know there's fire in the house through the presence of smoke. But here, Jimmy questions, he says, well, Here in this world, well, maybe wherever there's a particular quality of smoke, there must be fire. But what about in other universes? Yeah, then it's different. So this applies to our universe. So the Buddha talked about this to us in this world. He wasn't saying those humans behind Mars, right, and on this other planet. Then the teachings will be different. I mean, different Buddhas and different worlds, it's different. Okay. So hopefully this is a little clearer. So we can say in general, okay, it's like that. But the moment you question further, I look at it like a pixel picture. Where I live, when you walk down, there's a hotel and they have a pixel picture of His Holiness. So from afar, it's His Holiness, very clearly. Or on my screen, it's very clearly, I can see every shape. But when I go closer and closer and ever closer and ever closer, everything starts to disappear. That's true for this picture of His Holiness made of little stones. It's not pixels, it's like little stones. It's like a mosaic. Call that a mosaic, right? So it's one of those mosaics. So if I were to come really close, His Holiness would disappear. I would just see little stones. The closer you get, the less you see it. This is reality in the normal sense as well. This is the orange, this is an apple. But then when you really analyze where's the apple, things start to become hazy because they don't exist inherently as anything. If they existed inherently, this wouldn't be a problem. So in answer to Rika's question, in general, without analyzing, a conventional truth is established by a conventional cognition, a conventional valid cognition. But then conventional truth don't exist inherently, nor do valid cognitions. So when you dig a little deeper, things start to become less clear-cut. Yeah. All right. Just wanted to mention.
We are all valid cognizers.
We all have valid cognizers. We have valid cognizers. Do you see me right now?
Yeah.
Do you know you see me? You sure? 100% sure? Yes, you are. No one is going to convince you and say, no, you were hallucinating. Right? You know you saw me, so you have a valid cognition. You have a valid cognition. You see, there was class today. You sat in here. I said such and such. Right? Of course, if you dig a little bit deeper, or maybe I was dreaming, but in general, without going much deeper into it, I think we can say, or that your name is Rika. You know that, right? Of course, you could dig deeper and deeper and deeper and find out, or you could doubt it and think, oh, actually, the name on your birth certificate is a different one. But you're called Rika. We all, call you that. So there's a valid cognition that you have that your name is Rika. There's a valid cognition in my continuum that your name is Rika. Does that make sense? So you have valid cognitions. You have direct sense consciousnesses. You have inferential cognizers. We infer all the time. It's like this, it's like that. But the moment you start digging a little deeper, then there's always room for doubt to a certain degree. Yeah, because things don't exist as concrete as we may think. Rika, does that answer your question?
Yeah, I was just wondering about it because I've also heard that only the Buddha is a valid cognizer.
Ah, that's different. No. Ah, okay. No. This is something different. So the word in valid cognizer is pramana in Sanskrit. Pramana. So pramana can also mean reliable and valid. So they say only a Buddha is fully reliable because a Buddha really realizes phenomena, knows exactly, is omniscient. So in that word, valid cognition, you actually, when you use the English word valid cognition, you wouldn't say a person is valid cognition. That sounds weird. But it's actually just a translation of pramana. You have to then use the word pramana in a different way. Tsema in Tibetan or pramana in Sanskrit. So only the Buddha is pramana. So when you say a person who's valid, then that's the Buddha. Does that make sense? Okay. All right. And then there's a lot of discussions by Jimmy. I still don't know who Jimmy is. I thought I knew Jimmy. I know Jimmy who used to attend another class, but I called him Jimmy. I don't think he was called Jimmy. I didn't realize that that wasn't his name, so he called himself Jimmy as well, but I'm not sure it's the same Jimmy. All right, so he talks about mere appearances. He says, I would argue that a rope snake, so perceiving mistakenly a rope as a snake and the horns of a rabbit, like non-existences, are not included in the category of mere appearances because they do not appear. They appear. Things appear wrongly. We do distinguish between mistaken appearances and non-mistaken appearances. And then inherent existence doesn't appear. That's the whole thing. Inherent existence appears. It doesn't exist. Inherent existence doesn't appear, but it's still... So whether it's a mere appearance or not, that's a different discussion. Like mere appearance as being merely labeled. Of course, you can label anything. Wrongly labeling is still labeling. But we're saying phenomena that actually exist, they are correctly labeled. So if I label a rope a snake, then I have an incorrect label incorrectly. So here, mere appearances, do they refer to existent objects or not? Well, I guess it could be a matter of opinion, but the point is things that don't exist still appear. That's very important. So what appears is a speckled rope and a rabbit's ears, and it's not possible to label them as snake or horns. Well, it's possible, but it's wrong. So this classroom and human verbs are mere appearances in the sense that they're the result of dependent arising and therefore a valid basis of labeling. Yes, that's true, absolutely. They're correctly labeled, I agree. But yeah, my disagreement is just saying phenomena that don't exist can't appear. Our problem is that they appear to us all the time. That's why we're stuck in samsara. That's why we're stuck in a non-enlightened state. Stuff appears to us and then we believe in it. Yeah. Okay. All right. So that's one thing I wanted to address. And then there's this whole discussion about Alex Basin. Yeah. The generic image. Alex Basin and Tome, you very nicely responded to that. Alex Basin is using the term opaque. And, well, no, he doesn't use the word opaque, but he uses the word transparent in a metaphorical way. He's not literally saying the meaning generality is transparent. Semi-transparent, anyway, it's semi-transparent. You know, we use the word clear, for instance, also in a metaphorical way. We say the mind is clear and knowing. I mean, clear, like it's clear to me. I say sometimes we say, oh, I understand. It's very clear. Your explanation is clear. I would say that's a metaphorical usage of the word clear. And the mind is clear and knowing. We say our consciousness is clear and knowing, clear and aware. Clear means things can appear to it. Just like a clear mirror, a clean mirror, things can appear to a mirror. Likewise, things can appear to our mind. Objects are over there and they still appear to me with the shape and color, for instance, in the case of my eye consciousness. So therefore the word clear here means not literally in like a physical sense, but the ability for things to appear or allowing things to appear to it. Okay, so there's that. I think, so that's one way of using the word clear in a metaphorical way. and what Alex Basin does is saying transparent or semi-transparent in the sense, and I've heard this analogy, he uses holograms, but the analogy is of that of like a thin veil. For instance, if I wanted to think of the cup doesn't directly appear to my mind. It cannot appear directly to my mind because it's a conceptual mind. So there's no sense faculty to which it appears first and then it appears to my conceptual mind. That doesn't happen. Or if it's not present, for instance, if it's not present, if I think of the cup this morning, I mean, how could it appear to my mind? It's not even there. So then what happens is a mental representation. That, like usually that's the word used. Something that according to my understanding of what a cup is, that appears to my mind. For instance, think of a car. Right now, think of a car. Whose car is red? Whose car is white? Whose car is blue? There you go. Different colors. So what a car means to you, it even comes with a certain color. So what appears to you is a mere representation of what car means to you. At the very least, it has a color, or maybe it doesn't. Maybe it's just black and white. The point is that is not the car. But by way, it's like a veil over an actual car. It allows you to get at the actual car. Even the actual car can appear to your mind by way of the appearance of what car means to you. So it's like a veil. It's not the actual thing, but it's through that through the appearance of the meaning generality, or the general image, the representation of what car means to you, that car can appear to you. So transparent in that sense. It allows for the appearance of the actual object. But semi-transparent because it doesn't appear with that same clarity. The car can't experience, or the cup for that matter. If I go back to my room and I remember the cup. So it's a representation of that cup, what that cup meant to me, the way it appeared to me before, that enables my conceptual consciousness to conjure up that image, and through that the cup appears. But not with the same clarity. Not with that same clarity. And that's why I believe Alex Berzin uses the word, it's semi-transparent. It's like, it's a veil. I didn't say piece of clear plastic. Or even a piece of clear plastic still distorts the thing itself. So it doesn't appear as clearly. It lacks that vividness. That's why I think he uses the word reading. So you posted the article by Alex Berzin himself. The hologram. Like a hologram. A hologram is just it's like an image created by lasers, right? It's like a laser that appears with depth, so it's three-dimensional, and it slightly switches, like the image changes when you move around, so a hologram kind of changes. So it's like a hologram. Okay, well, I guess maybe you could say translucent might be a better translation. I think someone just wrote. Who was it? Aiden, translucent, yeah. So might be a better choice. Okay.
About Jimmy's question, can you please explain, like according to non-Gelupas, they say they are opaque and thus only allow indirect recognition of external objects?
Yeah, that I didn't understand. I would like Jimmy's, yeah, I think I also copied that. According to the Gelupa, he says mental aspect, okay, he talks about mental aspects, which are really appearances here. Mental aspects that arise to the mind. Is this the same as what we call generic image? Well, it depends. If it's a conceptual consciousness, the appearance is the generic image, the appearing object is the generic image. If it's a direct perceiver, the appearing object is the object itself. And he says, is it one of the main differences between Tsongkhapa and the older schools? Gelug says that we see the actual object. Okay, so that's true. In the Gelug tradition, it is said that the objects actually appear to our mind, although they appear inherently. But in the other traditions, the Kagyu and the others, we don't see through it. This is all we see. So I think he means what appears is the mistaken appearance. That's all that. We don't see anything. We don't see the actual object because it doesn't exist basically. They say conventional truth don't exist. So I don't know whether the Kagyu school, for instance, says it in that way. Sounds like 90%, 99% mind only. It all comes from the mind. There are no external phenomena. Yeah, I don't know. I would have to see a quote from the Kagyu, or like it doesn't help me to just. Yeah, I would really like to see a quote that this is the case. that they don't see, that things are not opaque. He also said something about opaque, right?
War end of a message, a quote from Torbersen.
So there's, okay, where's that? So Aidan said translucent, yeah, that might be a better translation, that's true. Okay. Anyway, yeah. It's not the same as seeing, using the English term that's opaque or transparent. Okay, anyway, I think I've explained it. There's just not enough time to go through it now. I don't find it now, the mental hologram, etc. Okay, oh, here it is. Can you see through an opaque hologram? No. Kagyu, Nyingma, view, everything is illusion. Can you spot the difference between hologram? Yeah. All right. Okay, I don't know. Tomer. Except in the case of Chittamatra and Yogacara, they are fully transparent. According to non-Gelug, they are opaque and thus allow only direct cognition. But what does he mean with what is opaque? The appearance? Indirect, only, I don't understand what he means, allows only indirect cognition of external objects. So what is the, yeah, I don't know. If Jimmy could specify what he means.
This is a quote from Torbersen.
From Alex Bersen. He gives this, oh, so this is Alex Bersen saying that it's opaque?
Yes.
Huh? Doesn't even make any sense. I have to read that. If you can send it to me again, because that doesn't make any sense to me. According to non-Gelug, they're opaque, and they thus allow only direct cognition of external objects. What does that even mean? Is that in Alex Bersen's quote?
I think so.
All right, I'll need to read it again. Maybe read everything beforehand. Okay, never mind. Okay. So, yeah, I couldn't go through all the messages. It took a little longer today, but these are important questions still, I think, for our understanding. So that's why I've chosen them. And leave it at that. I'll leave it at that because it's late. Yeah, so next time I'll try to be better prepared. There's also someone, Tao Seti, who wrote me a few emails, but there's nothing right now that I can summarize in class. I mean, anything that would be helpful. And there's a very long email and a quote he sent to me. Yeah, anyway, all right. But hopefully in the future I can address this further. Okay, great, thank you very much. And let's dedicate. In the snow-encircled land, you are the source of benefit and bliss. Avalokiteshvara, Denzin Gyatso, please remain in life until samsara ends. May the precious Bodhi mind, not yet born, arise and grow. May that born have no decline, but increase forevermore. May the precious view of emptiness, not yet born, arise and grow. May that born have no decline, but increase forevermore. All right, thank you.